Hello, another special for you today as we head inland and upland to the moors and heathlands to catch up with Dr. Peter McAvoy and Shaun Gelling from DEFA to explore a particular species which is found there, the management of its habitat and the benefits this brings to a myriad of wildlife. I'll say no more for now, let's just find out more, get our wellies on and get out there. And you can hear the sound of scrunching moorland and heather underneath boot. And yes, we are out into the moorlands. What could have been a nice day, but well, it's one of those days where it's a bit lower down, it's not too bad. Come up a bit and you come into the mist, which is where we are now. Back at Foxdale, up in the moorlands, not that far from Snuff the Wind, realistically. And well, it could be a worse day. And I blame Peter. He sent an email saying it's clearing up nicely now, it's got worse, which is absolutely hopeless. And now we've come this way again. We were up in the moorlands last series, I think, sometime, and he suggested coming up at this time, having a look around, specifically with an eye to grouse and sort of their effect and their interplay with wildlife.
Yes, grouse are a much underrated species in terms of wildlife. They are a native. In fact, they're an endemic species to the UK, and we have guys with us today who are instrumental in making sure those birds continue to flourish is a dubious term to describe them in the hills, but they certainly work very hard to make sure that the heathland which we're standing on right now is in immaculate condition and great for a whole host of other wildlife as well.
We're talking red grouse in this instance?
Red grouse, yes. Yeah, as opposed to black grouse, which don't occur on the Isle of Man, and we're probably never native here either.
Who else have we got with us today?
We've got Denis Hughes and Bruce Walker, who are part of the grouse tenancy, as they have a syndicate, particularly on South Barul here.
Well, we've had the tenancy of South Barul since 1976.
Oh yeah, that's going back a bit. The year of the Great Drought.
And been involved in the management since 1982. The grouse numbers fell quite sharply at the end of the 70s, and trying to find out what had happened between us and the department, and because of that, a long-term management programme of the habitat was initiated then, and we've been involved ever since.
Wow.
The latest bit, with the tractor you can see there, the department help us with the management, but that is Denis's initiative all on his own. I mean, he's paid for that, and he does all that work.
Oh wow!
At his own expense, basically.
Gosh, and Denis is just here as well, and we're looking at a large, pretty new looking as well, John Deere tractor. So, what exactly is this used for? This is just for use for cutting down, or
just used for cutting the heather with the flail mower that's on the back. As you see at the moment, we're just doing. It's a 3-yard wide cut. It does, and they just zigzag all over the hill. Basically, we're just trying to break as much ground up as we can. The idea of the management is burning and cutting is to chop the heather back, and then it regrows from the rootstock, and it sort of rejuvenates the heather, because the older stuff, which is very useful for grouse for nesting in and hiding in, it's not such good feed value. The younger, the optimum age for heather for adult grouse is 7 to 8 years. So you need to keep renewing it, because some of this heather will be 50, 60 years old, and so there's very, very little nutritional value in it.
So it's an essential management technique. People will be familiar, I guess, if not with the techniques which go on here. I dare say a lot of people just think moorland like this looks after itself, but it's far from it.
Yeah, they do. The Manx Wildlife Trust have a section of moor and Dolby Mountain, and in their annual report every year, they've put something along the lines of Dolby Mountain continues to look after itself, but it doesn't. It just degenerates if you leave it. To maintain the heather in good condition, you do need to manage it. Okay, you can leave it for long periods, but it slowly does degenerate. The plants get bigger and bigger, and they fall apart. And in the meantime, all the seed that's been cast there had no light on it, and most of it dies. So you're waiting because the big plants then die, and then you're just waiting for regeneration from seed. Now that can take an awful long time. If you cut it or burn it, it regenerates from the old rootstock.
And the idea was a
So
mosaic,
it's short term. Yeah, and the idea is to get a mosaic of all different age heathers all over the moor, principally for the grouse, but it is of benefit to all the other upland species as well, and of course the sheep.
And you're saying principally for the grouse. I mean, is this still for shooting? Do people still go out shooting? Does that not happen much these days?
No, we haven't shot. Well, we did have one shoot this year. Not that we shot anything. We haven't really shot since 1992. I think was the last year.
I think for about 20 years
It's
there's
about 20 years.
a voluntary moratorium on shooting grouse, trying to get the numbers back
Get the
up.
numbers back up.
Yeah.
So had they significantly fallen since you were saying in '76 when you started off there, you'd seen numbers go down dramatically?
Numbers went down at the end of the
Yeah.
70s, and when we started the management, or since we started the management, numbers have held up reasonably well on these hills, but at a much lower level than they were in the 70s. They've fluctuated on these southern hills. They've probably fluctuated between about 10 pairs and 30 pairs in the past 20 years, and luckily we're at the top end of one of those cycles at the moment, so we're hoping that finally we've got some sort of permanent uplift, but time will tell whether that's right or not.
I suppose so. And you mentioned earlier on that these numbers had gone down. So was this just down to the fact that the habitats had been allowed to get into disarray, or do we not know?
As well as the management we've done, we've been looking at this sort of problem, looking at the scientific side of it, if you like, for quite a long time now, and I think that there was a combination of factors probably. Predation was certainly one.
Mm-hmm.
Hen harriers had just arrived on the island, and they take grouse.
I'll take grouse out. Yeah.
Peregrines were recovering from the organochlorine poisoning in the 60s, so their numbers were coming up. At the same time, the conifer afforestation programme, which had taken place between 55 and 69, was closing a canopy, and grouse are moorland birds. That you don't find them in the wooded habitat at all, so that was excluding more ground. 2 or 3 bad breeding seasons and poor winters in a row at the beginning of the 80s, so it was probably a combination of factors that just tilted the scales the wrong way, if you like.
And what had brought you guys, because we're talking about knocking on for 40 years then of being up around the hills looking here, what brought you in the first place? Was it just...
It was just shooting to start. But then Denis and I particularly got interested in why this had happened. You know, we went through a spell in the 90s when we had grants from Manx Airlines, as they were then, conservation grants, and we were actually radio tracking the birds hatching the grouse, putting miniature radios on them and tracking them to find out what had happened to them, and so wandering around the hills in the middle of the night, wearing strange clothes and million candle power headlamps and catching grouse, and we learned quite a lot from that.
I believe at one stage, I don't know if this was the work we were talking about, but you got a significant award. I think it was the
we had got a Lauren Perrier award.
Yeah.
Well, we were 7th, I think, placed 7th, weren't we? Which was the lowest award that we got. We got to go to Aspley House and meet Prince Charles.
Oh, that's not too bad then.
So, but we were the lowest. They do awards down a lot lower than 7th. But it's only the top 7 that go.
The most important
to meet
thing
Prince
was,
Charles.
as well as a nice certificate, we got
Did you get the champagne?
Oh yeah, you did. Okay, so Lauren Perrier.
That was
I've actually still got 2 bottles of that left.
That's lasted well then. That's lasted well. And was this a UK-wide competition or a?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good to get 7th in the UK then. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Can't knock that.
We were sort of a penny ante entry really compared to the some of them are really rich syndicates that we're in, but all doing good work. I mean, you get the award on merit really, on the work that you've put in, not because you're who you are. Like, Well, if it was because of who you are, nobody knew who we were anyway. So
unsung heroes, they say, of the moorland.
Yeah.
And do you still get that drive now to get out and still, like, say, we're looking at the tractor here and so very all day. I dare say it can be sort of a lonely, hard old slog at times, can it?
Yeah, I actually quite enjoy it. When the tractor's running well and the mower's running well, it's quite peaceful. It's very noisy. To just get out and drive around and go where you want to go and cut it. Try and do it sympathetically. I actually quite enjoy it, although I'm sometimes loath to admit that, because at other times it's very frustrating. The tractor keeps breaking down. The mower, if the cutting heads go out of balance, the whole thing vibrates and starts to shake itself apart. So it has to be well maintained, and it can be very frustrating at times.
I can imagine. It's one of these jobs where you have to need to know what you're doing as well.
Yes, you need to know what you're doing. Yeah, exactly. It's in principle, you think you just jump on it and drive away, but it's not quite as easy as that.
No, nothing ever is it?
Nothing ever is.
It's a pretty rough terrain. If you don't
It
know
is
where
very
to-
rough terrain.
Well, I was going to say, round here it is, isn't it? Just strolling round.
Well, this is quite good compared to some of the places I go. There'll be big, deep gullies, and the only way you can get across them is to drive across them, basically, and you're risking life and limb sometimes to get across.
Yes, got to keep your wits about you.
Yeah, you've got to keep your wits about you. Yeah.
I bet. Okay, well, we're going to stroll on a little bit where we... did you mention, Peter, having a look, maybe just seeing if there's some old nests kicking around, or...?
Yeah, these guys and the dog should be able to find some old nest sites, and if we're really lucky they might flush a grouse somewhere as well.
So where do you fit into this, Shaun? You work with these guys from the department point of view?
Yeah, the work these guys do fit in nicely with our overall management objectives for the uplands, which is, as we know, it's a working environment. There's people making a living out of it, i.e. our grazing tenants. So basically it's more or less the same. I liaise with the shooting tenants and the grazing tenants to make sure that they fulfil their lease responsibilities, and in the case of the shooting tenants, they are on a 50% rent reduction for the moratorium on the grouse shooting, but to get the 50% reduction they carry out the management work, which is beneficial, like they say, not just for red grouse but for also grazing livestock, and it greatly reduces the fuel load of the hill, so it helps to not prevent but certainly reduce the risk of wildfire incidents anyway. So you can see where we are here. There's all sorts of different ages of heather, whereas we cast our mind back to Bradderhead where it was just an overgrown morass of gorse and heather. There was nowhere to slow that fire down at all, but somewhere like this, hopefully, if a big fire did get hold, with the knowledge of the tenants and the department's mapping of the activities, we can work closely with the fire and rescue service to try and sort of pinch a fire down, and certainly know places where it'll slow down if not stop of its own accord. Because
it is we were just saying, it's a very rough, rugged terrain. If something does get hold, very difficult to actually clamp down, I suppose. It
is, and we're very, very lucky that these guys here, especially Bruce and Denis, and we've got a few other guys that have been involved in the management of the hills, including the grazing tenants, that have got this intimate knowledge of these big pieces of ground. I mean, this bit of land we're on here is 1,200 acres. So, and then the bit on the other side of the road's 1,000 acres, and so on and so on.
Areas we're talking about.
Yeah, well, the department owned 20,000 acres of hill land, and on that we've pretty much got all of it rented out either for grazing or shooting or both in most cases. So it's a big responsibility, and it's an awful lot for one person to have an intimate knowledge. So I work really closely with these guys on a regular basis. I've learnt a lot from the grazing and the shooting tenants.
Well, we're just hearing about 40 odd years of experience there with those guys.
Yeah, tremendous. Yeah, it's fantastic. And there's the grazing tenant on this very same hill we're on. He's a lifelong man as well. So it's a lot of knowledge, and I learn an incredible amount off them every time I meet them. Really.
So when people again will be familiar when they see some of the heather burning going on, the control burning which is allowed, that's all. Well, I assume that's all licensed by the department. And who decides that? Is it decided by you, or the department, or the landowner and the tenant? Who takes or makes the decision where the burns go?
Right. Well, the bulk of the burning that's done, the management burning, is done up on the where we are now in the uplands, and it's classed as registered heath under the Heath Burning Act 2003. So that's operated by the department and overseen. And it can either be, it doesn't have to be on the department-owned ground. Where we've got a lovely habitat like this, it was all what we call registered to give it some sort of protection, additional to things like the Wildlife Act as well, that do protect some of the management techniques. And but so basically, these guys, they know that they're allowed to burn between September and the end of March. So they apply annually for a licence to burn. It's the same for the grazing tenants, and it doesn't matter if it's private land or department land. And they'll submit a map and the plans of roughly what they want to do. I mean, it's not an exact science. They can't say exactly where they want to burn because. I can imagine. But what we can say on average, in that burning season, there's normally about 20 to 30 days where it's possible to carry out safe burning through the season, which isn't easy when these guys, a lot of these guys work full time, so
yeah, exactly.
If you nip that down to just weekends, it really reduces it, so they've got the work cut out. Probably why Denis had bought a tractor as well.
Can't say blame.
Yeah.
We'll stroll on up and see the guys just up ahead of us. So it's amazing, and like I said, when you need to really come out and chat to the likes of you, Peter, Denis and Bruce there to realise it's really quite a complex web of different people working together in order to keep this sort of habitat in the good condition it is.
Yeah, it is, but all the work's so important as well. Like Peter said, you've got chances of losing ground as well. If it's not managed, then it'll become overgrown, become a big fire risk. And all these management techniques up here, even though these guys are doing it specifically for red grouse, and the grazing tenants management is specifically for their sheep, the offshot of it is that the rest of the wildlife just really benefits from it
as well.
Yeah.
Which is just some important. Well, it's just such an important spin-off, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, and of course, the more we protect, from wildfire instances, the birds are safer when they're nesting as well through the spring.
And something you really wouldn't appreciate. I mean, so many of us just drive past. We're lucky we live in the Isle of Man. You can come past all this marvellous moorland, but an awful lot of work goes into actually maintaining this. And again, it's just a lifeline really for biodiversity and for actually maintaining a habitat which will actually support so many different types. And we've caught up with the rest of the guys here just about, tramping on up the hills a wee bit.
This is a burn.
This is a recovering burn that was done a few years ago with myself and Bruce.
Ah, right.
And this is how it regenerates. And the cut has the same does the same thing, except you don't get all this stick left behind.
So it's the old dead stuff, been burnt off, and you can see all the new shoots coming up here now, which is real shoots of growth again. So it really makes a massive difference. So it stops us getting this very top-heavy, woody sort of approach and getting this lovely, nice, fresh growth again. It's incredible. And we were just saying with Bruce coming up as well, the actual grouse itself, the red grouse itself, is a unique species.
They are unique, yeah. They are. The bird people now say they're a subspecies of willow grouse, but I don't think that's. They may have been an offshoot of willow grouse, but they are the only species that live on heather. To me, that makes them unique completely, and they are, I think, completely. What's the word I'm after? Unique to the United Kingdom. They have tried to introduce them in other places, but for some reason, they never succeed. They are a peculiarly British game bird, and they're wonderful. Personally think they're wonderful, wonderful birds. If you compare them with pheasants, when it comes to chick rearing, for instance, the cock pheasant doesn't take any interest in the hen after he's mated with her. She rears the young, but the cock grouse he stays with the hen and with the young and protects them. And if the hen for some reason gets killed, as long as they're more than about a fortnight old, the cock will rear them. They won't rear them if they're less than a fortnight old, not because they don't want to. It's just that the cocks don't brood the chicks. The chicks, up till they're about a fortnight old, when they start to control their own body temperature, they obviously can't control their own body temperature. It's just like farmyard chickens can't. So they need to be brooded. Well, the cocks won't brood them. It's just not in their nature. So if they are younger than the age where they can control their own body temperature, they will die, obviously. But if they're older than that, the cocks will stay with them, look after them, rear them, and show them everything they need to know, which is pretty unique, I think, in other bird species, like the little Tweety birds, what we call them, where the cocks do feed them. They look after them the same as the hens do. But in game birds, there probably isn't any other species, possibly ptarmigan, which is again a grouse. They do the same. But even farmyard roosters don't look after chicks, But grouse are very good that way. They're wonderful, wonderful parents, and they will sacrifice themselves to save their chicks. I've seen it years ago in Derby when there were grouse on there.
As we were just coming up, we were talking, well, you've been hearing about all the work that's been going on. We've been hearing how it's been going on for 30, 40 years with Bruce and Denis here. And of course, I suppose, one never likes to dwell on these things, but there comes a time when they're not going to be around doing this valuable work, and someone else is going to have to do it.
Correct, yeah. I mean, these guys won't mind me saying that they're not spring chickens, quite rightly, and they work very hard for very little reward, and I think that's the issue. Is that they're out here, they love the place.
Well, it's going to comes across, doesn't it? It's the love of being here,
and their value to us is not only in managing the habitat, but they're very good naturalists as well. They see everything that goes on, they report everything back to us, and the younger generation need to get that kind of seed of interest. And obviously, the main reason they're up here is to find grouse, manage the population, and shoot a few. That's the sport of it, and at the minute the sport isn't there, so there is a real challenge ahead in getting the younger crowd through. The average age must be kicking in the 50s, 60s of these guys, with very few coming through in the 20s and 30s.
Come on a wee bit further up, and it is quite rugged in places. Never mind driving the tractor, you've got to watch where you're putting your wellies. And Bruce, we're just coming up, we were just talking about succession with Peter and the guys who are, well, hopefully going to come up in the generation behind you. And, well, you were mentioning, I'm sure you won't mind us mentioning his name, someone who won't be unfamiliar to people who listen to Manx Radio the last few years, Dan Walker.
Yes, yeah, Dan's one of the few other members of our syndicate, and I know the other syndicates are in a similar position where they're worried about what's going to happen when they're not in a position to do this anymore, because it does sound daft to say it, but it has become a labour of love, and not just the management. We've had I suppose we've had a total population count of the grouse on these hills for about 20 years now, so at any time, summer or winter, we have a fairly good idea of what the population is. We know what the losses are likely to be over the winter and so on. So it's more than just the management side of it. It's leaving what is, I suppose, 5, maybe 8% of the island's land mass, and what's an internationally scarce habitat as well. It's trying to leave it in good shape for the future as well.
Generations.
And we haven't really talked about the grouse much, but they're special birds. They're the only birds that you find up here all the year round. They're unique to the British Isles. There's some debate about whether they're a separate species or a subspecies of the European mother grouse, but whatever, our grouse, the red grouse, the ones that don't turn white in the winter, are special to the British Isles, and we're lucky in the Isle of Man to still have a population of them. So I hope it will continue for a long time. Yes, and if Dan and the others are prepared to take it on and able to, well, we'll be delighted.
I think there's hope there.
We hope so, yes, we hope so as well.
That's it for this week. I'll see you next week, if not before. Bye for now.